Okay, guys, gals, friends, family, this is General Patton's Bushcraft back with you with another recap of Season 8. This is Episode 3, titled Chewed Up. Okay, and the show starts with Day 7, and they show us Biko cutting his sleeves off his shirt, and then he gets up and he continues to work on the shelter, cuts and strips the rafters for the shelter, and he lines the wall with spruce boughs and tree bark panels because the wind's coming off the lake heavy on the one side of his shelter. Next moves on to Clay, and I tell you what, I think Clay's gonna win this show. But Clay shows us some pink boxers and it says he's gonna do like Amos from Season 7, and he ties the legs together to make a fish bag, and he hangs his meat, his fish meat, high up in a tree with this pink boxer fish bag. And then he goes on and seals up the back wall and fireplace with mud, and his shelter looks fantastic. He seals everything up real nice. Then he tries out his fireplace. It works awesome, and Clay tells us how much he misses his family. All right, then the show goes to Day 8. We're talking about Alone, Episode 3, titled Chewed Up. The show goes to Day 8 and shows us Matt. Matt was watching a mouse go through his stuff, and he tried whacking it with a stick. He digs up a few nodding onions, and he almost starts a forest fire. While he's digging up those onions, his fire, now remember, Matt didn't bring a ferro rod, so he's trying to keep a fire going the whole time. He's digging up nodding onions, and his area has a lot of grass, and he almost catches that grass on fire. Cooks his onions. He's almost, he makes an onion stew, and he says he needs to keep his fire going. All right, Day 8 still. Biko makes his bed out of boards. He found some boards, I guess, in his area, and he uses moss and spruce boughs for padding. Pretty nice bed that he makes. Gets his nice shelter ready, and he moves into his permanent shelter. Then we go back to Clay. The show goes back to Clay. He wakes on Day 8, and it's very windy. So he decides to go deer hunting. Clay finds out that most of his area is just strewn with fallen logs, just jackstrawed in there with all kinds of down timber. It's not huntable. He doesn't find any deer sign at all. Very rugged country. So he heads back to camp, runs into a bear, and Clay gets ready with his bear spray. The bear runs off. Shoo! Okay, the show moves on to Day 9, and they show us Jordan now. It's about 56 degrees. He shows us bathing, buck naked, and then Jordan works on that beautiful, gorgeous cabin. Okay? The show moves on, goes back to Biko. Shelter's done. Now he concentrates on hunting and exploring. Biko decides to swim across the bay to explore. Wow, talk about calorie expenditure. So he swims across the bay, doesn't find any good promising land, any nice meadows, stream, nothing. He goes back to his shelter, and he eats plants for dinner. No fish, no game. Ugh for Biko. Okay, then the show moves on to Rose. Rose shows us her fishing pole she made. She tries some fishing. Fishing's not going good. No fish. She hears and then sees a bear that night. She's in her shelter. She gets spooked, hears noises outside. The game camera picked up some night vision on that bear. She was on high alert. Rose gets that bear banger out, and she's ready to fire that bear banger. Rose is very scared, and Rose is on high alert. The show moves on to day 10 and shows us Michelle now. Shows us some comedy about how windy it is on the lake. She takes like a stick and pretends like she's talking on a microphone, and she's talking to the anchor man back at the news channel, and she says it's a very windy day. Doesn't look like it's good for kayaking. It was kind of funny. She cooks. Michelle shows us these cow parsnip. She cooks and eats some cow parsnip and shows us this long tool from the cow parsnip that she uses to blow on her fire. Pretty cool. She says it tastes very nasty, the cow parsnip. She tries to fish, puts a long pole into the water with a homemade hook, and hopes for the best. Okay, show moves on to Matt. Matt's feeling the loneliness, sees a black bear across the lake, another bear sighting. He decides to go hunting, goes for his bow back at the shelter, and finds that mouse that's been in his shelter chewed through the bowstring. Turns out the mouse was trying to get to the silencers on his bowstring, and chews right through the bowstring. Matt, with some ingenuity, luckily he fixes that bowstring. We see him tie it back together. He uses that serving string for the knock on there for the repair, and good on Matt. He repairs that bow, and it looks like it's going to work well. We also see Matt, he makes a figure 4 deadfall trap with a big heavy rock to try to kill this mouse. So good on Matt. I hope he gets that mouse done up. Okay, the show moves on to day 11. The show moves on to Michelle. Michelle comes up to the camera and says her hair is a mess. Says it feels like straw. It's the longest she's ever gone without doing her hair. Her stomach hurts pretty bad. She's very sick. She tells us that she's feeling very dizzy, and so she works on the door, tries to gut it out. She works on the door of her shelter. The show moves on to day 12, and she wakes to a violent sweat. Wakes up really early in the morning soaking wet, and goes outside actually to try to cool off a little bit. But she says that she almost tapped. But day 12 seems like she's feeling a little bit better. Okay, we're on day 12 now, and the show moves to Jordan. Jordan tells us he needs fish. Very hungry. And he goes out, tries some fishing. And good on Jordan. He catches a big bull trout on day 12. Then the show moves on back to Clay. Clay digs a hole in the ground down by the creek to build a refrigerator. He's got about a gallon of berries, and he tells us he needs to build a refrigerator. Says that his grandparents used to dig a hole by the creek to keep their milk cool back in Florida back in the day. So good on Clay. Ingenious for that. And then the show finishes with Jordan smoking that big old bull trout. So good on everybody. We still, seems like we got 9 people in. This is the end of episode 3. I want to thank you for stopping by the channel. This is General Patton Bushcraft Self-Reliance School. Please subscribe and share the channel. And I'll have episode 4 recap out shortly. Thanks for stopping by the channel.